Okay, so like imagine this. You're about to give a big presentation.
Hmm.
And even if you've prepped for weeks, your heart's probably racing, your palms, they get sweaty, right?
Yeah.
And your brain just gets stuck in this loop of all the what ifs.
Yeah.
That, my friend, is anxiety.
Yes.
And judging from these sources you've shared, it seems like that's what we're diving deep into today.
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually, fascinating how often anxiety is rooted in the future in
Right.
those what ifs.
Yeah.
WebMD, they define it as worry over a potential threat, not like a present one.
Like our brains are programmed to just go straight to that worst case scenario.
Exactly. Like
Oh.
even when there's no, immediate danger,
Yeah.
it's just like our internal alarm system, that primal fight or flight is going into overdrive. The Mayo Clinic, they describe it as this surge of uh, physiological changes, everything from, a rapid heartbeat to sweating, even trembling.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had those moments where our bodies think like a ringing phone is an actual emergency.
Right.
But, all joking aside, understanding those physical symptoms, I think, is a huge part of recognizing when anxiety is like creeping in, right?
It is. It's like connecting the dots between your mind and body.
Yeah.
Because once you kind of understand those sensations, you can start to find, ways to actually manage them, both in the heat of the moment and then also over the long term.
Right.
And that's, where these ideas about short-term and long-term strategies come in. And we see this in a lot of your sources.
So it's like having a first aid kit, but also a gym membership,
Exactly.
but for your mind. So let's maybe unpack those short-term techniques first. Like the stuff you can use when anxiety just hits you like a wave.
These are your like in the moment tools for calming that storm, right?
Yeah.
And one of the simplest but like most powerful techniques I saw in both WebMD and the I Feel Anxious article is the reality check.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So it's really just about taking a step back and just asking yourself, how likely is it that my fear will actually come true?
Oh, cool.
Often our anxiety just blows things way out of proportion.
It's like that saying, like worrying is like paying interest on a debt you might not even owe.
Precisely. Now, for those times when, anxiety is already like surging,
Yeah.
grounding techniques, those can be so helpful. Both WebMD and I Feel Anxious, they highlight these.
And for our listeners who maybe aren't as familiar, can you explain exactly what those are?
Yeah, so grounding techniques, they're like an anchor for your mind.
Mm-hmm.
They help you come back to the present moment
Okay.
and shift your focus away from those, spiraling anxious thoughts.
It's like pulling yourself out of that worry whirlpool.
Exactly. And they're surprisingly like simple. Like there's the 4-4-8 breathing pattern. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8.
Okay, hold on. I'm actually trying that right now. That seems almost too easy.
Right.
But I think I can feel my heart rate slowing down a little
You
bit.
see?
Wow,
It's
yeah.
about interrupting that racing thought cycle. Give your mind something else to focus on,
Right.
like your breath.
Yeah, yeah.
Another technique WebMD mentions is changing your physical position. Have you ever heard of the Wonder Woman pose?
Oh, you mean like the hands on hips, chest out
Yeah,
kind of thing?
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
It might sound a little silly, but there's actually a really powerful mind-body connection happening there.
It's like you're physically telling your anxiety, no, back down.
Yes.
I love it.
Right.
But on a more serious note,
Yeah.
one thing I found, I guess, reassuring from a lot of the sources was just this emphasis on like how temporary anxiety is, especially panic attacks.
Right.
Like that feeling, it will pass.
And, it's like a
Yeah.
wave. It might feel, completely overwhelming in the moment,
Yeah.
but it will eventually crest and recede. Even the YouTube video, from Mind, the mental health charity, even they emphasize this point.
That's true.
Like, you're not alone. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
That's a good point. So we've got our reality checks, we've got our grounding techniques,
Yeah.
we have that reassurance that anxiety is temporary. That's a pretty solid toolkit for those in-the-moment situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about building like long-term resilience?
Right.
Is that where the lifestyle changes come in?
Absolutely. Think of it this way, right? Short-term techniques, those are great for putting out the fire, but long-term strategies, those are about fireproofing your mind.
Okay.
And really understanding the why behind these strategies can be really like empowering. And let's start with exercise.
Okay.
Both Mayo Clinic and I Feel Anxious, they both emphasize this.
Yeah, everyone always says exercise is good for you,
Yeah.
but it's so easy to just brush that off when you feel anxious. Like, I don't want to exercise.
Right, but it's not just about like blowing off steam
Uh-huh.
or getting in shape, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Exercise actually makes your brain release all these feel-good chemicals, serotonin, dopamine.
So it's not even about, like, masking the anxiety. It's giving your brain what it needs to, like, regulate it better.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. What about other lifestyle changes?
Sure.
I know sleep came up a lot in these articles.
Sleep is huge.
Okay.
Think about it this way. When you're sleep deprived, your mind and body, they're already running, at a deficit.
Right.
And that makes it so much harder to deal with stress. And those anxious thoughts, they tend to, spiral a lot easier.
Oh, so like those late night worry sessions, those are
Mhm.
actually making it worse.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe I should rethink my bedtime routine.
It's definitely worth considering. Now, here's something that I found really interesting in I Feel Anxious.
Okay.
It was about social connections.
So it's not just about having like a good support network.
Right.
It's also like who you're surrounding yourself with.
Exactly. Having supportive friends and family, of course, that's essential. But this article, it also talked about limiting contact with people who are maybe, well, anxiety inducing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've definitely had friends who, bless their hearts, could be a bit much sometimes,
Right.
especially when I was already feeling anxious.
It's about recognizing that your mental health is important, and sometimes that means setting some healthy boundaries
Yeah,
in your relationships.
right.
Now, we've talked about exercise, sleep, social connections. Those are fantastic tools for, that long-term resilience.
Right.
But what happens when it feels like more than just those everyday worries?
Yeah.
What if it's like interfering with your work, your relationships, your ability to enjoy life?
That's a really good question, and one I'm almost afraid to ask.
Yeah.
But I think it's something a lot of listeners have probably thought about.
You're right to bring it up. And there's no need to be afraid.
Okay.
This is where getting professional help is so important.
So it's not like a weakness to get help.
Absolutely not. It's actually a sign of incredible strength
Right.
and self-awareness. Think of it like this. If you had like a cough that wouldn't go away and it was affecting your breathing, you'd go see a doctor, right?
Of course.
Well, anxiety and other, mental health challenges, they're no different. They often need professional care. And just like with that physical injury, early treatment can make a huge difference in, the healing process.
That's a really good point. So if someone is listening and they feel like they need help, where do they even start?
That's a great question. There are so many resources out there, but that first step is often talking to like your primary care doctor.
Okay.
They can assess your symptoms, maybe refer you to a mental health professional, like a therapist.
Okay. What about things like therapy or medication? Can you maybe explain a bit more about those?
Sure. Therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, that's been shown to be super effective.
Mm-hmm.
CBT helps you figure out and then change negative thought patterns and behaviors that, contribute to your anxiety.
So it's kind of like rewiring those thought loops like we were talking about.
Exactly. Now, medication can also be really helpful for some people,
Okay.
especially like together with therapy. Anti-anxiety medications, they can help manage the physical symptoms,
Right.
which can
Yeah.
make it easier to engage in therapy, develop those coping mechanisms.
So it's not about masking it, but it's
Yeah.
kind of giving you that space to do the work in therapy.
Exactly. It's important to remember that finding the right treatment, that's a really personal journey.
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
It's about finding what works best for you.
Your needs.
Exactly.
So-
And remember, there's no shame in trying different approaches until you find that thing that makes you feel your best.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to that really powerful statement from I Feel Anxious. It's a simple sentence, but it really stuck with me. You are not your anxiety.
Powerful, right?
It is. What does that mean to you?
For me, it means that anxiety is just one part of you. It doesn't define you, and it doesn't have to control your life. You are separate from your anxiety. And with the right tools and support, you can learn to manage it and live a full and meaningful life.
It's like you're the surfer and anxiety is the wave.
Mm-hmm.
And you can like learn to ride it instead of letting it just crash down on you.
Love that analogy. And, just like learning to surf, managing anxiety takes practice, patience. You've got to have the right guidance.
It's a journey. It's
Mhm.
not like a destination. Speaking of journeys, I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier about seeking professional help,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's still so much stigma around mental health.
Yeah.
And people might feel ashamed, embarrassed to even like reach out.
Right. And it's totally understandable, but it's so important to remember getting help with your mental health, it's really no different than getting help with your physical health.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't think twice about seeing a doctor if you, like, broke your leg.
No, of course not.
Well, anxiety and other mental health challenges are just the same. Often they require professional care.
Right.
And like with a physical injury, that early intervention can make a world of difference when it comes to healing.
That's a really good point. So someone's listening and they think, okay, I think I need help. Where do they even start?
Such a good question. And there are so many resources. But oftentimes that first step is talking to like your regular doctor, your primary care physician. They can like assess your symptoms, maybe refer you to a mental health professional, a therapist, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about like therapy itself or
Yeah.
medication? Can you talk more about those
Of
options?
course. So therapy, CBT especially, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. It's been shown to be really effective in treating anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And what CBT does is it helps you learn to identify those negative thought patterns, those
Yeah.
behaviors that are contributing to that anxiety, and then change them.
So it is like rewiring those loops that we were talking
Oh,
about.
yes,
I know.
exactly.
Right.
Now, medication can also be really helpful for some people, especially if it's used alongside therapy. Anti-anxiety meds, those can help manage those physical symptoms we were talking about earlier.
Right.
And that can make it easier to actually like engage in therapy, work on those coping mechanisms.
So it's not about masking the problem. It's more like it gives you the space to do that deeper work.
Exactly. That is a great way to put it. Now, it's important to remember finding that right treatment plan, it's a journey.
Yeah.
What works for one person won't necessarily work for another.
Yeah.
It's really about finding what works best for you.
Your individual needs.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to, try different things
Right.
until you find the one that helps you feel your best.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to that really powerful line from the I Feel Anxious article. You are not your anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Like, it really is.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
To me, it means that anxiety, it's just one part of you. It
Mhm.
doesn't define who you are, and it certainly doesn't have to control your life.
Right.
You are separate from your anxiety. And, with those right tools, the right support, you can manage it. And you can live a full and meaningful life, even with it.
And the more you understand it, the better equipped you are to do just that, to manage it. We've taken a big step today. We're diving deep into this topic.
Absolutely.
We've explored all these different strategies. It's like we're building this mental health toolkit, filled with things for like short-term relief, long-term resilience.
It's a journey, not a race. Take it one step at a time.
Exactly. And celebrate those small victories, You reminded us that even little changes like adding in a few minutes of mindfulness or calling a friend, it can make all the difference.
It really can. And for those times when it just feels overwhelming, please remember, you're not alone.
Right.
There are resources out there, professional help, support groups,
Yeah.
all there to help guide you toward a calmer, more empowered you.
So to everyone out there riding those waves of anxiety, we hope this deep dive has given you some new tools, some new insights on how to, navigate those choppy waters. You are not your anxiety. You are strong, you're capable, and you are worthy of peace and well-being.
Couldn't agree more. And as always, keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deeper into that landscape of your own mental health.
Until next time, be kind to your mind, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Yeah, and it's like we've been putting together this whole mental health toolkit today
Right.
with like all the stuff for short-term relief and then the stuff for like long-term resilience.
And remember, this isn't like a race or anything. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Just take it one step at a time.
Exactly. And like you were saying, we should celebrate the small victories.
Yes. Celebrate those small victories.
Even those small changes can make a huge difference. Like even just like 5 minutes of mindfulness or something, or
That's it.
calling up a friend.
And for those times when it just feels completely overwhelming, please remember,
Yeah.
you are not alone.
Right.
There are people out there to help professional,
Yeah.
help support groups,
Yeah.
to help you find a calmer, more empowered you. So to everyone out there, riding those waves of anxiety, we hope this deep dive has given you some new tools and some new insights into how to navigate those choppy waters.
Absolutely.
You are not your anxiety.
That's right.
You are strong,
Yeah.
you are capable,
Yeah.
and you deserve to feel peace and well-being.
You do. And as always, keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deeper into your own mental health.
Until next time, be kind to your mind. And we'll
Yes.
catch you on the next deep dive.